afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Sustainability Summit, Building a Sustainable Workplace Culture. We're going to wait a few minutes while all the participants can get into the webinar, and then we'll get started. Wait another minute or two. Okay, I'm going to get started with the intro piece, and hopefully more people will join us in a couple minutes. As I said, today's session is building a sustainable workplace culture. And we're pleased to have with us today several representatives from Hillsborough Township in Somerset County, who is the second to most certified communities. They've been certified starting for 9 years, steadily increasing their certification points from 215 to 645 in 2020. They're the leader in sustainable Jersey in Somerset County, and also a leader statewide. And so they're here today to kind of share the secrets of their success with us. Before we get started, I just wanted to go over a few kind of logistical details. As the presenters start speaking, you have a couple of options for communicating with us. Please use the chat feature and make sure you address it to panelists and attendees to either respond to kind of questions that the presenters may ask, but also to share your thoughts or offer additional insights with your fellow participants. That's using the chat feature that's on the bottom here. Also, if you're asked to raise your hand or you have a specific question and we can reach out to you, you can do that, use the raise hand feature. And then finally, at the end of the presentation, we'll be taking questions and answers. So if you have a specific question that pops up while the presentations are going on, please write that in the Q&A box using the Q&A feature on the bottom of your screen. And then when the session's over, we'll go back and answer those questions. And if somebody else put a question in the box that you were really interested in too, you can kind of like that, and then that will move up in the queue of questions. And before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping Sustainable Jersey announcements. We're looking forward to our first submission for the 2021 municipal certification cycle. The deadline for your first submission is June 6th. On June 21st, that's the deadline for the third and final round of the school certification cycle. We also have a free technical assistance opportunity available to help municipalities develop a water story, which is a founding action in the new Gold Star standard in water that was announced on Monday. So if you're interested in dealing with water issues in your community, developing the water story is a foundational component of doing that. And you can go on our website to find out more information about that. And there was a session yesterday on enhancing water resources, but you'll be able to view that session if you're interested on our website, because we'll be posting recordings of all the sessions on the website. And then finally, if you live in Atlantic City Electric territory, we do have a Resiliency and Environmental Stewardship grant opportunity available. The deadline for that is June 30th, and you can check our website for more information. And now, without further ado, let me introduce our illustrious speakers for today. First, there's David Coy, who's the Business Advocate and Sustainability Director for Hillsborough Township, and Anthony Ferrera, the Township Administrator, Mike Carr, Director of Environmental Programs and the Recycling Coordinator, and Rich Reserve, the Director of Public Works. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and turn it over to our presenters.
Hello and good afternoon. Hi, I'm David Coyce. I am the Business Advocate, Sustainability Director, and the Deputy Zoning Officer for the town. This panel is going to be a little bit different than what you might be used to. We're not going to use a PowerPoint to drive the conversation, but we're going to go over a number of different things that we feel are very valuable to try to share with you. And first off, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and for choosing this webinar to watch. If you're not familiar with Hillsborough Township, we are located in Somerset County. We are 54 plus miles in land. We're a very, very large town. We are approximately 40,000 in population. Hillsborough Township has been around for a long time. This is actually the 250th anniversary of Hillsborough Township. There's a lot of great history here. Hillsborough started out as a farming community and has developed over time to being a place, a lot of people live here and commute to different areas, centrally located. We have two major transportation routes through the town. North-south, we have Route 206, and our major east-west is a county road, which is Amwell Road. We're not too far away from Somerville, from Bridgewater, so if you're familiar with those. To the south of us is Montgomery, our neighbor, who's right next to Princeton. So just to kind of give you a little bit of idea where we are located in the state, because there are so many of us. So as we get started, I just wanted to start to give a little bit of background in the township and how the sustainable initiatives started in town. I started working for the town in 2011, just to give you some context. And the efforts here started around 2006. And the township had actually received a grant and worked with Sustainable Jersey prior to its current name, I believe when it was still based out of Rutgers University. And that's really when a lot of things started to get going. And the township went and then created a steering committee and started coming up with different plans. And then through time, Hillsborough Township was one of the first, I believe there was 34 towns that were part of the inaugural class. And so Hillsborough was one of the first ones. And by the time I started working for the town, I had actually started out as an intern working for the town. I was going to Blaustein School, Rutgers, and part of the program was to do an internship. And I started working with the township that way, and then eventually started working here as the assistant planner and zoning officer. One of the responsibilities that I had when I first started working for the town was to work with the Sustainable Hillsborough Steering Committee, attend their meetings, help them out, be kind of the in-between and helping them on a number of different initiatives. And one of the first years I was here was actually when recertification happened for the township and for all of the inaugural towns that were part of the program. It was a brand new process. No one had gone through it before, and it was one of the first major things that I had to do as an employee. And through the years, the township started working with different towns looking for mentorship and talking to different professionals that were going through the whole process to try to get advice for how do you manage this program? How do you work? How do you continue to drive success in the program? And we got some really great advice from Woodbridge. And that was actually one of their strategies was to actually recertify every year. And so we eventually got to that point. And ever since then, we've been certified for 6 or 7 years in a row. And it's really been a big part of what we do is continuing to get recertifications. And it's really helped us from year to year. Now, as Renee had said, we were probably averaging around 300 or so points from year to year. And the last couple of years, and this is a lot of what we're going to discuss today, the last several years, we've really made a big push, going from 300 to 400 to 500 to 600. And we're going to share with you a lot of our strategies and how we did that in hopes that you're able to replicate that. I just wanted to note a few things. First and foremost, when a lot of people end up meeting me and they see that I have a number of titles and they see that I've been involved in a lot of the certifications in town, full disclosure, when I first started working for the town, I did not have a background in sustainability. And I came out of planning school and I eventually became a licensed planner. But I don't have any certifications in sustainability. A lot of my experience has come from being basically at the forefront of the certifications and taking advantage of all the webinars and the amazing partners that are out there, different organizations and things like that. The town is really blessed to have really active volunteers and people that have really amazing credentials. So we've been working with the likes of Dr. Chris Abrupta out of the Rutgers Water Resources Program. And we have a number of other very talented residents who also contribute and give their time and help us along. I didn't know what sustainability was when I first started working for the town. It was something that was given to me, and it was explained to me that it was very important and I needed to move things forward with it. Part of that is I really had to try to understand, where did it come from? What was the inspiration? What was the history for sustainability starting, especially coming in where a lot of this had already started. And I looked to the township administrator, Anthony, who's here with us today. I looked to him for a lot of the background and to trying to understand, okay, how did this program get started? Where are we going with it? What would you like me to do? And in the early days, and I'm going to turn over to him just shortly, but in the early days, a lot of it was trying to figure out how exactly do we drive this? How do we get this built into our culture? And a lot of things we're going to talk about, by the way. So this isn't just a celebration of like all the achievements and a lot of the good things we're able to do. It is a little bit because we are certainly proud of where we've been able to get to, but so much of this has come from learning, failing, changing it up. And by the way, if you're going to try to take on something like this, just know this is hard. This is not easy to do. It's very, very difficult. And we've tried different techniques, having the volunteers early on be the drivers, and then sometimes running into some roadblocks of how those volunteers might work with the professional staff that are here, and then how the professional staff might get that information from the township administrator and where it's coming down from the elected officials here as well. So I think this is a good opportunity. Before I turn over to Anthony, just so everyone knows our township format, our elected officials, we're the township committee form of government. We have 5 elected officials, each serve 3-year terms, and basically it like rotates. So we have 2 seats a year are up for election with the exception of 1 because of the odd number. And Anthony is very interesting and unique because he's not only the administrator, but he also served on the township committee when all of these efforts were underway, and also served a few years as the mayor of the town. So I'd like to go over to Anthony so he could start to share some of his perspective, the challenges and experiences with everything.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. And welcome to everybody on the call today. Thanks for joining in. And to give a lot of kudos to David and also Rich and Mike on the call today, because it's really important to go and make sure you pick positive people. Not so much that they know everything. As David mentioned, he didn't have any of the experience in sustainability, but he had a positive attitude as well as Rich and Mike to make the program go forward. And he was nice enough to say he was given the job. It was kind of a voluntold, if you will. So I was the guy that said, David, you are the sustainable champion, whether you like it or not. And it's important that the leaders go ahead and pick the right person. So thank God I did. But I'll start first from an elected official position, as back when David had mentioned it started back, I guess in 2007, really, when we created the Hillsborough Sustainable website, our sustainable committee, and had multiple forums with the residents. It really started back then. So you think 2007 to now, it's 14 years. As David mentioned, it's a process that we need to go through. But the first thing you really need to do is get buy-in from your elected officials. So I know there's different people on the calls today. So whether it's your mayor, township committee, whether it's your board of education, whether it's your CEO, it doesn't matter. The person from the top really needs to be able to support that. So from the mayor's and elected official spot, it's a little bit easier because typically they like supporting good things. So this is a good thing. So honestly, back when I was supporting this a long time ago, everything was good. All the buttons. Yes, this is good for the community, good for the township, good for the planet. So all these things were great. So very easy for us just to say, hey, this is a great thing, pick the right guy and move forward and everything will be beautiful. And we'll go to that nice sustainable luncheon and we'll get all the nice awards and bring everybody and take pictures. That's what we thought. And again, as David mentioned, it's not that it's not that easy, but you really need to pick the right people. So from an elective standpoint, it's important that you have your elected officials make sure that they understand, make sure that they're educated on what really is not only sustainability, but what is really your goal. And we'll talk a little about goals and objectives in a minute. So I don't want to spend too much time on the elected officials other than you need buy-in, you need to make sure it's communicated. And then as we did, you need to make sure that you're getting those right individuals in town. As Renee just mentioned, I saw in the chat there, that you have great people in town that will volunteer or have this expertise in your town. So don't try to only think you have to have everything in-house. You need to utilize all the community resources that you have. And it's just amazing the amount of people that not only do you have in your community, but that will actually help volunteer. And again, you want to make sure you have people on the team that are going to help you go forward. You want people to be the doers, if you will. And I sit on a lot of boards and a lot of organizations, and it's the same 6 to 10 people that do all the work. And it's no different here, by the way, even though everybody is involved. So I want to move on to the administrator piece, which I think is even way more important. So someone can tell you from the top, the mayor and the committee, or whoever it is in your field, but it's the person right below that then has to make sure that they're executing on the plan, which was my responsibility. And in selecting the point person, which was David. When we started this years ago, it was David and I taking a picture on stage, and we're like, wow, there's so many people behind these other towns. How are we ever going to get to do this? So we started out very small, right? We had a sustainable director, and David's showing some slides here. So we had a sustainable director and myself saying, hey, here's our goals. And our goal was really, hey, how can we get that low-hanging fruit, which was important because you want to be able to show success not only to the person that's running your program, but also the people in your organization. So what we did was we really tried to get that low-hanging fruit, things that we were already doing, things that we knew that we could obtain fairly easy, and get that early success and show people like, okay, it's not that difficult. You know, some of the things we're already doing, some of the things we know that we can accomplish. So we did that. Then what David just put up here is our tree. One of the things that was important that we saw early on was that we told everybody, hey, we'd like you to be part of sustainable. Here's why it's important. And everybody said, great, we agree. Well, it wasn't until honestly about 3 years ago where we made we're very strict here in Hillsborough with goals and objectives. So we added a goal and objective for each team in those departments. So as David has up here, here's where our points are for at least 2020. So every department David meets with goes over some of the goals and objectives for each department, and that department's responsible for obtaining those specific points. Inside of that department, there's also, I want to call them our leaders, that are really the people that it wasn't forced upon, like I gave David this job years ago, not being voluntold, but who are those sustainable leaders that want to raise their hand? And we have a merit increase program here as well in Hillsborough. That person really wants to go above and beyond and be that sustainable champion and leader for that department. So what we've seen those numbers rise very quickly is when you make it part of the entire town's goals and objectives, right down from the mayor, the committee, the administrator, all department heads, right down to the employees, that your obviously your results, as you can see, are much better. So we found it's been very helpful to set those goals and objectives, check them on a quarterly basis. And what we have is kind of fun. Hillsborough is very competitive. We're competitive with each other, and we're also competitive with other towns. So we've not only made this something fun to do, but we've also made this a competition internally. So we compete against the other departments, we compete against the other employees, and then we compete against the other towns. So not only is it a department goal, but it's an overall goal, and it's a success for everybody in the organization. So I know Mike and Rich are going to talk about making it's not really something that it's a brand new idea, but it's something that's already embedded in the township, because when you force somebody to do something, you won't have good results. So as David put up on the board there, we in Hillsborough here, when people are doing great things, we have our high five award, and we have quarterly drawings. David had created the Sustainee Award as well. So it's just, again, another recognition. And the program doesn't cost money per se. It's just about recognizing people and making clear goals and objectives to get the results that you're looking for. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to David, and then we can leave it for Q&A later. But just wanted to give you a quick on the administration side that goals and objectives are extremely important to get the results you want, and to make sure that you're making it fun, making it somewhat competitive, and then at the end celebrating as a team. So thank you, David.
Unmute myself.
I was going to say.
I am unmuting myself. Thank you. Thank you, Anthony. So just to kind of, go back and just kind of explain the structure a little bit of how it is. So right now I am the business advocate and sustainability director. And the sustainability title was added on some years ago. At first, we're calling my efforts or my responsibility as a coordinator, and eventually evolved into the sustainability director. And for a lot of things in municipal government, as different challenges arise and different responsibilities are out there, or opportunities to advance, we have a chance, we're given a chance as employees to add responsibilities and to prove ourselves and to contribute. And that's been one of the nice things, to be able to eventually earn that title and to be a part of. But it wasn't always easy. And part of the process at first, I thought some of the mistakes that I made early on was taking on too much responsibility by myself, thinking that essentially the entire certification fell on me. I needed to do every single action, and I had to do all the documentation, everything like that. Anthony, as a leader, pushed me to really challenge myself and to really start working with all the different talent that we have throughout all the different departments. And one of the things that he had asked me to do is to really look at all of the actions and to see like which departments do those actions fall under? And not every action, as everyone on here I think knows, not every action is necessarily created equal. Yes, there's a point system, but some actions are definitely a lot more complex than others. And as I was being asked to push things forward over the years, essentially the strategy we started to have to take was I had to learn to delegate. I had to learn to trust people. I had to take the time and sit down and have meetings, sometimes one-on-one with the department heads. Early on, we had realized that one of the keys to success was really working closely with the department heads. As the department heads have lots of different responsibilities, the elected officials also look to them to push things forward in different areas. And it was really important to get on the same page with the department heads. And one of the challenges that we had was sometimes sustainability was being interpreted as something that was new or was in addition to the work that they were doing. And we really had to kind of go over that and spend a lot of time and look at different actions that different departments were doing for years, but they never realized that there were sustainable Jersey actions. So a lot of the low-hanging fruit was actually identifying, okay, this department does that action, and yeah, maybe they're missing a couple of the criteria that sustainable Jersey does. So then sitting down, talking to the major players like the department head and trying to talk to them about, okay, here's the value of this and that, and can we make this change? It was really, really important for me being able to give the department heads and their employees a platform for them to be able to also give us feedback. I needed to not go into the situation saying, you have to do this, this, and this. I learned that I needed to listen, that a lot of these folks had many, many years of experience and have seen different things come and go, different initiatives and things like that. And sometimes at first, they may not have realized all the positives that can come from sustainability. And over time, as we started introducing different things, and a lot of times these different opportunities came about from our partners. Sometimes we might have a partner that would approach us like from the Rutgers Cooperative Extension, where we have a grant opportunity, or working closely with Dr. Abrupta from Water Resources and applying for grants. And then part of those grants is trying to make the most of the money. And making the most of the money means you have to really lean on the staff. So one of the big experiences that we had working with Department of Public Works, Rich Resevy, who we're going to get to next, was actually doing our municipal rain garden. And there was a proposal to do a number of rain gardens and on the municipal complex property. And one of the original designs had actually showed that it was going to be in the back of our property and you wouldn't see it. And we had pushed back and said, well, what about our front yard? What about at the entrance of our municipal building? What if we do it there? And this was still early on, and rain gardens weren't always the most beautiful in turn. Yes, the plants and everything else, but the people that got involved in the design of this was their first big test to really have a rain garden be the star right in the front. And so there was a lot of different things they did with design and rocks. We actually put a pathway through so we could actually have people experience the rain garden as they're walking through. And this would not have been possible if it wasn't for us tapping into the talents of our Department of Public Works employees. And at first it was, what is a rain garden? And for a lot of our employees, this was really the introduction to sustainability for the town. Yes, we had some years under our belt and certifications, but really having the employees get their hands dirty and contribute, and to have a really big deal project like this was a big introduction. So Rich, from your perspective as the Public Works Director, I wanted you to kind of share your experience with this and kind of go and talk to us a little bit of how things have evolved with sustainability and how you approach it with your employees and how the employees have come to embrace this mindset.
Okay, David, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, first of all, and happy Public Works Week. I understand that my screen was backwards to everybody, and we can't tell from here. Actually, it looks incorrect to me right now. So I have to tell you, thank you from all the panelists out there for helping me out. That was a little heart attack at the end here, realizing that, because some time was spent on it and you could kind of see some of the things that we do. My goal here was to come up with something that's a lot more dazzling than I am. So that's my plan B. So if I'm not saying anything that you're interested in, look at the back of me. It's great stuff. Building a sustainable workplace culture within the framework of a public works department. You would think it would be easy because sustainability means maintainable. These are long-term words. Culture is a long-term word. And so are the employees of public works. They're a long-term group. For those of you guys out there in the municipal end of things, it's always a crew or team that you have that has a lot of years experience. The way government works, you have a pension system, and to get to the end of your pension system is your success. And that makes a lot of guys and a lot of women with a lot of experience because they stay in the business a long time. So when you're introducing something new, you have a lot of people that have seen it all before. I think David alluded to that. With it, you have to come up with good ideas. If you have too many things ending up on the scrap pile, that means you're doing too many things without a lot of planning. Our first introduction to the sustainability from my aspect, and I think it was 17 that we did our first rain garden. It took us a little while to get our legs to us. The guys weren't buying in, I have to be honest with you. Why are we doing this? This doesn't make any sense. And it was something that I think needed a lot more education put out there. It's a new word. Sustainability was being used differently than the way they were initially hearing it. And I think it took us a while to get from buzzword to productivity and sustainability the way we know it now a couple of years later. And I think the biggie for us was to realize what's already in place. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. We have, and I'm gonna use them as a bullet point to tell you what, if you guys are in public works and you're kind of looking, what does Hillsborough do? Our leaf program generates 9,000 cubic yards of leaves. So we in turn give that to the local farmers as compost. A great thing, to help out. We're already doing it. And David has helped us kind of mesh that into the criteria that's needed to create points for us. The salt brine system that we use for winter. Every season that we have something that we do that's sustainable. We use a lot less salt than we used to because of this new system that I'll give credit to the Township Committee and our people here that they've supported that, and we've moved on to some things that are, I think, somewhat cutting edge, but they've already been in the works in some other places of the country for a while. Our basin program, our storm drains. I know we have a couple DEP people out there. We, follow our stormwater program religiously every year, and that's a huge sustainable thing for us because we're cleaning our basins and we're recycling at the same time. We pick through what we get out of the basins, and if there's recycling, it doesn't go in the garbage. We're going through the process of recycling that, and I think that's a big deal because it's an extra step, but then you're producing less waste in the end. So it's awesome that we're doing that. Again, it's something that we were already involved in, but we took it a step further. I think the knowledge and just, again, the sustainability program in place is helping public works become even better. Another thing for us, community forestry program is an awesome thing that we run. The DEP, again, it's 2 shouts out to you. I'm at my limit now because you guys do a lot of critiquing of us. So I gave you 2. The seedling program that you guys give us to run, awesome for the town. We had a tremendous turnout. It's helping our forestry program. More points, again, that we're already doing this. Our main focus, though, for the last couple years, as you could see behind me, if you see the character, as I go into my weatherman mode, is Casey Green. We've created Captain Cleanup, and that is a figure that we use for our Clean Communities program. Sheila Castellano, somebody who works with me in the office, has taken this to a level that's something that you would have to pay some serious money to an advertising agency for, with all of the great work that she's done. Captain Cleanup is a figure that we use to promote the program, whether it's at the educational level, the program level, from the standpoint of cleanups. You could see the different types of cleanups. David, if you could keep that up there, I'd like to touch on the different things. You can go to our first one that we got to last year was LitterCon, just because of the pandemic. And in that, we were able to do a virtual cleanup and switch to that. And I thought that was a great idea. And I think Renee agreed that that was some pretty good thinking on running the cleanups virtually like that, the residents were happy to do it. It got them out of the house, and the social distancing obviously worked out well with that too. But this is something that will live on into the future. This is our baby, and we've had wonderful responses, and it's something that just continues to grow. It's very professional in the way it's presented to the town, and we're very, very proud of it. I think that leads us into embracing all of the future advancements that Clean Communities and the different things that we're working with David are going to take us.
And Rich, if I may.
Yeah.
And Rich, I think what is so awesome about this is I know you had mentioned Sheila, but this is being done in-house. This is being done by the talent that you have as part of your staff and as part of trying to build this culture. Can you talk a little bit about like what it's been like to start to have people that work within your own department that you don't have to necessarily go and tell them to do this, that they're starting to suggest these solutions and starting to kind of do the work?
Oh, no doubt. And we'll start with Sheila. This is something that you could literally give somebody a different job exclusively, and this would take up all of their time to hit on the high detail of what we're doing. And I can't say enough. The best thing I would suggest to the panel is to view our website and see what's going on our Facebook, everything that's involved with this. This is how to run a program if you're going to do something. This touches on all the successful points. From another aspect, our supervisors have taken this to a different level also. Like I said, the salt brine system, that was all them. They got that in place, and it's not just a salt brine system, it's the calibration. And that's what makes it the success, is calibrating your spreaders to actually save the salt. I think some places go to the first step, but then there's a couple more steps which actually are the measurable ones. And the environment is definitely better off for it when you go the whole length of the program, as opposed to maybe just saying, oh, we just do that. But do you know what you're doing when you're doing it? And that's what we try to promote. Know what you're doing. If you can't explain it, you don't know what you're doing. So I think that's the easiest way to put it for our group. The few things that we do pick, we know what we're doing, and that's our success in getting points. I know we're working right now on the charging stations. We have 2 journeyman electricians that are knee deep in it right now, getting that program going. Again, the support, you need funding to make these things happen. And, you know, credit to you finding the funding for this, David. I know you were working on that. And our guys will pick up the maintenance end and the installation end where we can. And, you know, again, where we're successful, we do tangible things at Public Works. That's where we are successful in keeping the sustainability program, you know, what it is.
So one of the challenges with the EV charging station grant that we got, unfortunately, there was only one way to find this out, was not knowing how much money that it would cover. And it came from the NJ, it pays the plug-in grant. And we had realized early on that it didn't cover enough. And we're so lucky to have the talent on our staff. And from my perspective, you know, getting nervous and not knowing, is this something that we can move forward? And then starting to talk to the staff, and right away they're saying, okay, what is it that we need to do? How can we help? It became very solutions oriented. This is how you do it. And we didn't have to talk about, is this, does this make sense, or why do we need it? Because we've been able to get past that. And where the employees are seeing the values and then are starting to connect their talents to the things that need to get done has been just so invaluable. And a little bit, we're going to go over a few of the different things that kind of the employees have just started doing on their own, even without needing to be directed, which is, I think, what you're ultimately trying to get to when you're building the culture. Thank you, Rich. Was there anything else you wanted to add before we moved on to Mike?
Not so much, but if I could leave you with one thing is to take on the projects that you can manage. Don't get in over your head. Keep it in front of you. All the you know, logical things that you would normally do in the course of managing anything. If you get too thin, it starts to be less successful. Pick a few things, know what you're doing, and go from there.
Thank you, Rich. One of the main reasons why I wanted Rich to be on this, because out of all the challenges as being the sustainability coordinator director, one of the big eureka moments was, it was shortly after the rain garden and a few other green infrastructure projects that Rich's department was heavily involved in. And we had our big eureka moment where Rich had given us a call and had said, hey, listen, we have some challenges throughout the town. One of them is a drainage ditch, and we're looking at it, and, you know, we're trying to take what we've learned from these good experience with green infrastructure. And basically the department started thinking about sustainability as a solution. And one of the biggest challenges that I had early on was, David, what is sustainability? And I tell you what, the thing you don't want to do is give them the United Nations definition, hand it over to them and say, good luck. It's hard for people to relate to that technical definition. So one of my challenges is trying to break it down for people and to talk about, well, how does it fit in within the context of Hillsborough? And how does it, and break it down even further, because we're trying to work with the key departments as we take on these different initiatives. And well, how does it relate to the different things that we're doing? You have Public Works that's responsible for a lot of the infrastructure in town. But when we start having conversations like about resilience and to trying to come up with different ways to manage stormwater, because we have struggled with, you know, flooding happening in town, and you start to you start to take that and you start to make it a bigger picture, and you start to make those connections to people, and talking about how do we become resilient? How do we become efficient? How do we not miss the opportunities to incorporate the most innovative thing, or the most innovative solution that we can do? Sometimes when people say, well, tell me exactly what sustainability is, sometimes my answer is, it's a little bit of everything. And I think it's good to move on to Mike Carr next, because some people might not realize the role that the health department can have working towards sustainability. Mike is a little bit unique. He has a title of Director of Environmental Programs, but he does do a lot of the traditional things that a health department does, on top of that of also being the recycling coordinator. And I wanted to move on to Mike next, so he could share some of the challenges, a little bit of how sustainability has been introduced into his life. He also has the unique role of not only trying to get the businesses to buy into recycling, but also the employees here at the building, making sure that we're doing the right thing. And we've also, and we'll talk about this more a little bit after, some of the tips and things that you could apply is working with interns, your volunteers, a whole variety of different strategies to do. So you're next up, Mike.
Thank you, David. Good afternoon, everyone. So I really, as David just went over, I really wanted to go over some of both my experiences with the sustainability projects I've worked with through the health department, but also, you know, I'm think I learned quite a bit from looking back on new challenges and saying, boy, I wish I knew now. Oh, I finally got that. I wish I had known that in the beginning, so I'd like to go over a couple of those as well. I think Anthony had started with, starting with the culture and how you get employees, how you get the buy-in, all those keywords. You have to start with the right people, and so we have the sustainability director, David, who's very interested and enthusiastic. So he's the right guy for that role. But either further down the line, we have multiple departments, that all manage their own staff. You need to get the right people to start setting the example and creating that culture within individual departments. One of the first things that David and I did with the recycling program in Hillsborough was say, we need to look at the actual recycling that's going on within the municipal building. We had several of the employees voice concerns about everything from individual other coworkers right to the cleaning crew. What good is it doing if we're recycling properly, but the cleaning crew is throwing it in the garbage XYZ. So David and I started a program where we did an audit of recycling practices within the municipal building. One of the first things I wanted to do was ask for a volunteer from every department. And the thing that I was looking for, I specifically asked for, I want that person to by their own accord to be interested in this. It doesn't do me any good if I have 2 or 3 or half the people representing their departments that are there so they don't have to answer the phone or whatever. So, I got a room full of interested people that we could start with. And I think it was David. I'll give him credit for it. It was probably me, but I'll give David credit. He said that, they're the ambassadors for their department. And, so we start with them. And again, this is all creating the desire and slowly starting to move towards a culture of this. So they go back, we told them, this is the message that we want you to relay to your employees. So I went through, a lot of the current recycling practices, procedures. We want you to do this and all these specifics. But one of the things I wanted to make sure that I made clear to these ambassadors was I don't want you to go back to your departments and be police. Just to me personally, I think recycling certainly, a lot of people deputize themselves as, with recycling and they go back and they say, you just do recycle. That, that's not the point. The point, that doesn't really get us in the direction we wanted to move. Go back and slowly educate people on correct practices. And that really, I really think that was the first thing that first program I started with on sustainability in Hillsborough. And I think it really set the tone for the other things that I've moved forward with. When you're looking for, your employees to get involved, you're going to encounter disinterested people. You're going to hit resistance from, as Rich said, in government. We do have people that have been in their jobs a very long time. A lot of businesses, you're dealing with new people. So just the concept of change, concept of my job yesterday isn't what my job is today, is a little bit more apparent in the people that you're dealing with, as opposed to in the government, where you have people that have been there for an extended period of time. You do get a little bit more of the, we've never done this. And not to say that's straight across the board, but it's certainly something that you have to be aware of. And that's a challenge, but again, you work on it. And one of the best ways to work on it is just know who the individual that you're dealing with. And you do have to start with those people who are, they just understand it. They get it from the beginning. They have the right attitude. They have the desire to do it, and you move forward. That may mean starting with some of the younger people. Younger people have grown up, and this is not so new to them as to people of my age and older, where it's really it's a big, it can seem like it's a big change, but when you look at it, it really isn't. And then if all of that fails, you just do what Anthony did and make it mandatory and say, well, it's a good, it doesn't really matter if you like this or not. We have to do it. So shut up and do it. Right. So starting with, Rich was talking about, being realistic and setting and picking and choose, especially when you start. A good suggestion, really go on the Sustainable New Jersey website and look through what they have there. There's a lot there. Number one, try and start small, and again, everything from one action, sustainable action, to the next. Just like building a culture, it's going to take time, and it's going to be something that you're going to build on as time goes on. Start with a smaller project. I think everyone has said this. You go on there and you look through what Sustainable New Jersey has as their approvable actions and things like, and you realize, oh, we do that. It may require a tweak here or there, slightly different. Okay, we have to document this. Okay, we have to send out flyers or promote that, but we already do this. So, you have to manage your expectations, manage your goal, as well as you have to manage your people to move through. And you get a few things under your belt, and you realize that this is doable. It's obtainable. I think you need, I think it's very important, as everyone knows, to get some kind of an idea of what you, whatever, if that's a government agency or a business or any group that's talking about sustainability, it can be so all encompassing and broad. Figure out what your efforts towards sustainability want, or should be, or what your vision is, and relay that to the group. In sustainable discussions in all regards, I think a lot of people, it gets to the oh, well, that's the saving the planet thing. When you start talking about difficult people or people that are just very hesitant, they hear a word or a phrase like sustainability, and immediately a wall goes up. I don't want to hear about that. I don't care about this. I don't, a lot of the sustainability movement has been pushed under the guise of saving the planet, and that's good and that's great. My background's in the environmental science. I'm active in conservation. I appreciate that. There is a huge, there's a huge business, financial, economic end to sustainability that needs to be pushed. Absolutely has to be pushed. The saving the planet motive, you either get it or you don't. You either say, yes, I want to do this because I don't want to see another movie about plastic in the ocean, or you say, the ocean's big, I'll never get out there, I don't care about that. Get away from the political, the polarizing end of things. And at the same time, as you're explaining, this is what this municipality, this is what this business, this is what sustainability means to us. This is the direction that we want to move in to meet. These are our sustainable goals. Here's to save the planet. You don't really need to explain that. I think everyone, it's pretty common sense that, most of these things are pretty common sense on that end. What you should do is look into the other end of it, the economic, the financial end of things. I think one of the biggest shames and disasters has been where we have recently got with recycling. Not only in this country, but in the world. So, I'm not new to the environmental end of things. I've been in the field for 21 years. I had, again, my undergrad is in environmental science. I've known about recycling since I was there. I knew the plastic went in the plastic container. I knew the paper went in the paper. It went somewhere, and it was a good thing. It instantly made sense to me. Why would I throw this in a hole when it can be used for something again? I really don't think many people understand how valuable a commodity recyclable materials were. You threw, again, cans and bottles in one container and paper in another. A truck took it away and it got turned into something else. That happened for sure, but an enormous percentage of recyclable material in this country was sold as a commodity, and the majority of it went to China. China is one of the leaders of just, they make everything. One thing China, as they make everything, doesn't have are their own resources to make these products. They were giving us unbelievable amounts of money for our recyclables. We got very sloppy with things, and the quality that we were sending them was so low that in the last few years, they've made national laws saying we no longer accept recyclable materials. So again, you talk about recycling and people are the save the planet, landfills, all of that. Right now, we're in a total crisis as far as, one, what do we do with all this material? Because we have more recyclable material than we have need for. And two, we just lost, as a country, we lost millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars just with that loss from China that could have been prevented. I can't help but wonder if for, years, if we were pushing more of that to the average person, saying there's a financial drive behind all of this stuff, that if we keep things clean and we treat recyclable materials as they should be, a resource and a commodity, we could still be making all of that money. So again, discuss, find a way. Rich just mentioned, you say like, that's a global level. What does that mean to a municipal? Rich just had a perfect example. The salt. He could have left it as, we had older equipment, it threw salt all over the place. Salt's bad for the environment. You could have left it there. But what you have, the real home run is, Rich found a way to help improve water quality and lessen impacts to the environment. At the same time, he can go to the people who say, I don't care about any of that. That's great. I honestly don't care. He can go and now say, we're using less salt, we're buying less salt. Figure out the environmental and financial implications to sustainability and push those just as much as you do, if not more, than you do for the environmental aspects of it. As one of the things I loved about sustainability is the field of public health at its core is a proactive, push. In recent years, in light of a lot of different things, it's really ground down to more of a reactive. We're reacting to COVID-19 as opposed to proactively trying to prevent it and, XYZ. A lot of the sustainable projects are really getting the health department back to a proactive mentality and ability. I'll give you an example. Right now I'm working on a well testing event that is through Sustainable New Jersey. We have had a long history of testing private wells. We have about 40% of our population in Hillsborough have private wells that they get their potable water from. We, for many years, tested their water to make sure that it was safe. In 2002, the state of New Jersey developed a new law where those tests wouldn't count for home sales. And it just got to the point where so few people were doing that. They wanted to go through a private lab to count for that. This well testing event is great because, one, we have partnered with Raritan Headwaters to do the testing, but it's also allowing us to reach out to a big portion of the residents who have wells in areas where they have arsenic and what's known as gross alpha contamination. It's radioactive material that we never got to before. So part of the sustainable initiative is an educational outreach, which we just would not have probably got to if it wasn't. So find out, my whole point is when you're building the culture, find out all of these things for how they relate to you, your department, your group, figure out what you're looking to do, and make sure that you pick and realize all of the benefits, from financial to, this initiative is going to be great for our department or our group. We're going to educate or get the word out on things that we probably would not have done had it not been for this.
Great, thank you, Mike. And right before we get to Q&A, I just wanted to just take about 45 seconds to just kind of summarize everything. So just a snapshot of our approach when it comes to sustainability in the culture. Set expectations, you heard that. Communication is key, but really getting people on target, what they need to do is important. Training and development, give them the support, give them what they need to get things done, even expanding it to getting the volunteers, interns, work with your local high school, work with the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, all different types of organizations. Empowerment, give your employees the opportunity to be involved. Leaders lead to make new leaders lead, and really having that culture kind of go where you have leaders creating leaders is really, really super important. Recognize people for their achievements, even the little things as you get started. Everything we're sharing is intended for whether you're a staff of 2 or a staff of 200. If you start to apply this and you start to take some of these steps, we really truly believe that you could be successful in what you're doing.
Well, thank you all, panelists. We have a hard stop at 2:15 because there's another session that's going to be coming on right after us. But I just want to make a few comments and then go to the question that we have in the questions and answers box. So if anybody else has questions, please put them in that box now. But I was so happy that Mike brought up the private well testing action, because that's a relatively new action that we implemented this year. There's a private well testing outreach action, and then there's also a removing lead in drinking water action. Both those actions are part of our new Gold Star standards. On Monday, we announced the Gold Star standard in water, and those actions count towards achieving that. And then in July, we're going to be launching our Gold Star standard in health, which they also count towards that action. And the Gold Star standard in health is based on exactly what Mike said. It was the perfect setup, because it really is intended to address the upstream determinants of health, like clean water and clean air and healthy foods and those sort of things. So we have a session later on in the summit about the Gold Star standard in health. So those of you that are interested in that topic, please take a look at that, and it's not too late to sign up for the session. So right now I'm going to go in, we have like 7 minutes left, 8 minutes left. I'm going to go into our question that we have so far, which is to the Hillsborough folks. Do you use Sustainable Jersey to plan activities or more to document actions already taken? If the former, is SJ on everyone's agenda year round? How do you manage this? Anthony, you want to answer that question? Or David?
David, you can go first and I'll put my comment.
Actually, I defer to you because I didn't really understand the question. I don't want to take up time.
So I think it's a little, go ahead, Renee.
No, I was going to say, I think, Anthony, what you're going to say is the answer. So go ahead.
So I think it's a little bit of both, right? So you're going to take some of those actions and the ones that are documented and go through that process and get credit. But for the most part, it's planning activities because through the goals and objectives. So in January, we'll go through each one of the departments, right down to the individual, and see what those activities and projects are going to do to get additional sustainable points. And then they'll be looked at in June, and we'll see if we need to adjust those, because things could happen like a pandemic that might impact some of those results that you agree to. And it's really checking in throughout the year. So if you just think you're going to put something out in January, and then in November, we look over to David and say, okay, oops, we didn't do that. That's not going to work. So this is something, as Rich and Mike both brought up, and David, that it's every day. It's not just, we do it 1 month and then we're done. We continue to do this. And that's what we've done here in Hillsborough. So I think it's a little bit of both, but it's really tied back to your goals and objectives, and having David be your point person and checking back with those departments to make sure we're reaching the results and we're not missing anything. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, and also I want to commend Hillsborough, because they do follow up on the comments that they get when they submit their application on their actions. And Sustainable Jersey is always willing to help clarify comments. I've had calls with some of David's team to talk about feedback that I had provided on some of the actions. So they take advantage of all the resources that are out there to help them, including, coming back to Sustainable Jersey if they have any questions and asking for more guidance, or even challenging the guidance that they got, which we're always, we're not perfect. We're always open to hearing, more perspective from the applicant on the action reviews. Any other questions? So, David, I have a question. How often does your full green team meet with the volunteers?
So the volunteers meet once a month. And we utilize that group. That group is really important, but we've started to use that group to help us with the education and outreach. So as you know, there's a lot of actions that have components of that. There's actions that stand alone that are community education and outreach. And then there's the action where you can do a variety of education and outreach. And we use the volunteers to really help us out. In this past Sunday, we had volunteers out at the Duke Farmers Market, and we were handing out reusable bags and giving out different education and brochures in the bags and everything like that. So we use them for a lot of education and outreach in addition to if any of them have any kind of specialties, something that they do, if they have a marketing background, if they're in environmental science, whatever it is. And then we try to then have them help us with different things that we need.
So Mike asked a question, was stating when he was talking about, trying to make the economic argument to get support for sustainability initiatives too. But for the audience, the people in the audience that don't have the great support from the administration, like you have in Hillsborough, can you give them some tips on how to convince their municipality that they should pay more attention to this and be active in it?
I think I could take that one. So I think what we try to do here, and there's people of all different backgrounds and experiences and political ideologies, whatever it might be. A lot of what I do and a lot of what these leaders that are here on this panel have to do as well. Our strategy is to just be very open with people, and we have to find different ways to explain the one thing that we're trying to do. So I think the point that Mike was trying to make was we don't just lead with one part of sustainability. We wish that everyone, that we could give the environmental argument and we could win the hearts of people that way. That's not always the way that we have to do it. We have to really try to find ways to relate sustainability to them, and it may not be about nature. So the really cool thing about that though is when we do find the thing that might resonate with them, and it might be their wallet, it might be the idea of just long term and their children or whatever it might be. It's all kind of hopefully will click for someone in one way or another. But the people that we did find that were resistant at first are becoming the biggest supporters of all of this. Is really incredible. And these are folks that maybe traditionally would say, I'm not doing it for nature. I'm not doing it for these reasons. And now these are the people that are bringing things to me and saying, hey, David, I'm buying this product and this is solar. Oh, hey, I'm installing a sensor water dispenser. And all of a sudden, these employees who I never thought would ever become the leaders have now become the leaders. And I have to catch up to them and document all the great things that they're doing. And then they start to see it. Then they start to get it. Then they start to see the other additional intrinsic values that come with it. And even when we're talking about the community, giving people a voice and getting their feedback and talking out issues before they become issues has become a lot of the strategy that we do when we work on projects. We don't just show up on, say, open space and have bulldozers there if we're working on a project. It's really important for us to be proactive, reach out, invite them out, talk to them, explain the reasons why we're doing. And even if we can't convince them at first, just keep going, keep working, find a way.
Hang in there.
Sometimes people will be resistant. I mean, Anthony and myself were out with a longtime Hillsborough resident last summer, and he was very upset that grass was being cut on township property. And and I don't know if we'll ever have a believer in that resident, but we gave him the time, we talked to him, and we're working with other professionals to try to get on the same page and move things forward. But there's always a challenge. It's never perfect.
Yeah,
Okay,
Renee, the one last thing I was going to add, and I'm watching the time here for you, is the other thing is, especially with the elected officials and your administrator, look at the surrounding towns. And if they have success, bring it back to say, hey, mayor, committee person, committee woman, administrator, the other surrounding towns are doing this and they're leading and they're ahead of us. And oh, by the way, they're getting some grants and we're not. So those type of leaders don't like to be left behind or be in second or third. So that's also a way to look at your surrounding towns and see what they're doing, or surrounding school districts or businesses. So.
Right, that's very important. And that is on you can look on the participating communities map from the homepage of the website and look at, sort by your county, and you can find all the other towns in your county that are certified and look at what they were certified for. That will give you some fuel to get that support, which I live in Monroe Township in Middlesex County, and I did just that because I had a mayor that was a little resistant. When I said, well, all these other towns are doing it, he was more open to it. And then once we got bronze certified and they got a lot of publicity for that, then they were like, we're going to go for silver. And so now they're very supportive, but it took a while to do that. When they recognized what was in it for them, then they
positive press. I mean, sustainability presents so many positive press opportunities, different press releases on different topics. And then once you start getting involved in this, you never know where it leads. It leads to partnerships, opportunities. Instead of you being the one that are applying for grants, people start calling you to tell you to apply for, hey, there's a grant opportunity, go ahead and do it. Oh, hey, here's a webinar. We want to learn from what you're doing. We want to connect you to these other people that are in your field. And all of a sudden this thing starts to really, really bloom. I really can't think of that many negatives why a town might not want to do this. Some of the most common things they say is they don't have the time, the people, or the resources. But really, I think they're being unfair to themselves, because if they just start doing these little techniques and making a little bit of progress, no one's saying that they even necessarily have to get certified.
right.
Here, maybe go and get registered.
And go for a grant to get started. Yeah.
Right. And then find that one issue, something that's important in the community that might resonate with your residents, and whatever it might be, there's so many different towns. We have so many different reasons of what's important to us. So you have so many actions. Find that action that will resonate with the people, will resonate with the elected officials, and then own it. Own that thing. You don't have to be 500, 600, 800 point. You don't have to.
Yeah. Right.
To find that
I
thing.
hate to say it, but we have to wrap up because another group is going to be coming in on our Zoom account to start their next session. But again, I want to thank all the participants for hanging in there on this beautiful day. And thank you so much to Hillsborough. I really appreciate all the effort that you put into the session and your willingness to share with our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please
Bye-bye.
reach out to me if you have any questions. Happy to talk to you.
Great. Oh, right. He just put his email in the chat. Great. Thank you, everyone. Have a good
Thank you.
day. Bye.